Let's talk about how to twist the content in order to come up with our punchlines. After each setup, the goal is to say something that will surprise the audience and make them laugh. Now, there are lots of different ways to write surprising punchlines, but we are going to focus on two: creating misunderstandings and creating new understandings. When looking at each setup, we can think of ways that the content could be twisted in order to create a misunderstanding. To do this, ask yourself, could words in the setup have double meanings? For example, here is some content. There are 4 main stages of the water cycle. Ask yourself, could words in the setup have double meanings? Well, sure. When we look them up, both stages and cycle can have double meanings. Stages can mean steps in a process and can also mean raised platforms. And cycle can mean an interval of time during which a sequence is completed, like in the water cycle, but it can also mean a vehicle that you ride, specifically a bicycle. So with these double meanings, we can create this misunderstanding. I don't think that you should put a bike made of water on any stage because it would just fall apart and get everything wet. So here's a setup and punchline with a dramatic element. Yeah, I hear that there are 4 main stages of the water cycle, but I don't think you should put a bike made of water on any stage because it would just fall apart and get everything wet. Duh. Another way to create a misunderstanding is to ask yourself, could someone hear the information in the setup incorrectly? For example, here is some content. Onomatopoeia is a word that is associated with a sound like knock, knock, knock. Ask yourself, could someone hear the information in the setup incorrectly? Sure, someone could think that onomatopoeia sounds like I don't wanna be a. So we can create this response using that misunderstanding. Go away, sleeping, I don't want to be disturbed right now. So here's a setup and dramatically delivered punchline. I know that onomatopoeia is a word associated with a sound like knock, knock, knock. But when I hear someone knocking, I'm usually like, go away, sleeping, I don't want to be disturbed right now. Another way of writing surprising punchlines is to create new understandings. To do this, first we ask if there's a personal way of looking at the information. For example, here's some content. Thanksgiving is a yearly celebration of the Pilgrims' first successful harvest in 1621. Ask yourself, is there a personal way of looking at the content? Sure. One of my favorite ways to look at information is to put myself in it, thinking, how could this relate to my life? So I'm going to imagine myself at the first Thanksgiving in 1621. And here's my personal response. I would not have wanted to be at the first Thanksgiving because I like canned cranberry sauce too much, and I'm pretty sure they didn't have it back then. So here's a setup and punchline. Hey, Thanksgiving is coming up. Yeah, it's the yearly celebration of the Pilgrims' first successful harvest in 1621. Cool, right? Not really. I would not have wanted to be there because I like canned cranberry sauce too much, the kind with the jelly, and I'm pretty sure they didn't have it back then, which is pretty lame. Another way to create a new understanding is to ask yourself if there's a deeper way of looking at the information. For example, here is some content. To solve two-step equations, first you simplify using the inverse of addition or subtraction, and second you simplify further by using the inverse of multiplication or division. Ask yourself, is there a different or deeper way of looking at this information? Well, sure. Two-step equations take more than 2 steps. They actually take 4 steps. After each step listed above, you have to actually write your answer down. And that's at least 2 additional steps. So I might say this. They should be called four-step equations because after each step you have to write down your answer. Actually, they should be called five-step equations. The first step is opening the textbook. So here's a setup and punchline. They say that to solve two-step equations, first you simplify using the inverse of addition or subtraction, and second you simplify further by using the inverse of multiplication or division. Piece of cake, right? Well, not quite. I think they should be called four-step equations because after each step you have to write down your answer, and that's exhausting. In fact, they should be called five-step equations. The first step is opening the textbook, which honestly is the most difficult step for me. You can use these strategies to practice creating short jokes where you have one setup and one punchline. Now, creating misunderstandings and new understandings are two methods for writing punchlines, and I suggest that you try them first. But there are lots of other methods. Honestly, it really comes down to being able to write surprising responses to setups. If you have different ideas on how to do that, give them a try. If your surprises make people laugh, then that's good comedy.